Hi, what's up, y'all? It's Poppin' It's D. About to react to this Sunny V2 vid. It's titled "Why Joe Rogan and Howard Stern Don't Like Each Other." What is Howard Stern even doing nowadays? I was gonna say something, but that's not polite, so I will keep that to myself. But I guess he's still, kicking or whatever and walking these streets. So sure, let's see where their beef stems from, and let's see where Howard is nowadays. Let's watch.
All the time, Joe is angry with.
Let's start over.
I used to have Joe Rogan on all the time. Joe is angry with me. He has a problem with me, and I know why.
Why exactly do Howard Stern and Joe Rogan hate each other? It's a feud that's lasted over 20 years and includes multiple different reasons, only made crazier by the fact that they used to be pretty good friends. This could be seen during Joe's very first appearance on Howard Stern, where in September 2000, Howard began by praising one of Joe's comedy segments.
One of the best bits we've played on the radio in a long time is a bit by Joe Rogan, who stopped by today, and I want to play it for you right now. Here's Joe Rogan's bit.
After playing the lengthy segment, Howard and Joe talked about how much they liked each other.
A great bit, a great comedian, Joe Rogan. Good to meet you, Joe. Finally have you on the show. How you doing?
This is an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor to meet you.
After which Joe Rogan became a regular guest on the show until the first incident of February 2002. Howard and Joe's friendship had strengthened in the 18 months prior, so much that they'd spent time together outside of the show. On the 6th of February 2002, the pair flew to Vegas where they'd end their evening at a strip club. In a state of intoxication, Joe made some jokes/comments about the girls there, done so in a private setting between friends. Although when they'd record a Stern Show episode the very next day, Howard tried to publicly call Joe a misogynist by airing his comments from the night before.
Then we went over to Club Paradise. Joe Rogan.
Howard, you of all fucking people are calling somebody misogynistic? What?
You try to act like you're above the strip club.
Oh, come on. I'm not trying to act like I'm above. I'm not trying to act like I'm above it. Well, I mean, you're
Oh, these girls, they don't like me.
What are you talking about?
Yeah?
No such thing.
You can all these whores and something.
You love these girls. I don't say it that way.
You know how it works that way. I think you're angry with women.
This was obviously a bit embarrassing, but Joe didn't seem all that concerned. It was the early 2000s and controversial moments were an expectation on Howard Stern's show. Only as time progressed, Howard refused to let the moment die and would push the same narrative in a later episode when Joe wasn't there.
Joe hates women. Yeah, Joe's weird. Like,
He definitely has a difficult time.
I've gone to strip clubs with him and he's like, get out of here, being a whore.
In the meantime, Howard tried to manufacture even more embarrassment by inviting a girl Joe had been with in the past to sabotage his reputation further.
He was my first one-night stand.
You're kidding. It wasn't really a one-night stand. It was like a trailer. By the way, you were Joe's 350th one-night stand.
That's fine. I learned a lot
Where
from
did you
Joe.
meet Joe?
You learned a lot from him?
Yeah.
Sweet.
What did you learn from Joe?
Well, after that wonderful one-night stand, I got pregnant, and I...
What?
Yeah.
What?
What?
You knocked her up.
Are
You raw dogged her?
How
One
old's
night
your son?
stand?
I never kept it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Joe played the awkward moment off like it was no big deal. However, this was much harder after Howard then invited Joe's actual ex-girlfriend onto the show.
Well, how did he hurt you? Did he cheat on you? He did.
Joe, what is your problem?
Did you think you had an exclusive relationship with him at the time?
This is on the radio for the world.
I did.
He did. Joe.
You're going hard on me, bro.
Joe, let me ask you.
Hey, enough.
Why cheat on her? Why not be honest?
You know what? We used to have huge fights, and then I would.
Yeah, but why the cheating?
And having grown tired of being embarrassed publicly, Joe's appearances on the
Yeah,
Stern
I
Show
would
became
stop
less
going.
frequent than non-existent. Noticing the pair's potential fallout, fans took to the Joe Rogan official forums where they'd bring up the original strip club incident before they'd receive clarity from none other than Joe Rogan himself. He'd write, "My problem with Howard's version of the story is that it's complete crap. I never said getaway whores to anyone. There are a lot of aggressive strippers that would try to get guys to buy lap dances. Howard and some of the other guys were getting them and I didn't want one. The girls were pushy and all I kept saying is no thanks. Somehow that turned into getaway whores when he got on the radio. When you've got a guy that you respect and admire and you've done his show a bunch of times, you think that you're friends. Then when that guy turns on you and talks badly about you, especially when it's not true, it's a gross feeling. I'm a loyal friend and that stuff means a lot to to me. If I had a friend outside of show business and he gave a distorted account of me like that, I would stop hanging around him and I wouldn't trust him anymore. As for Howard, I have no ill feelings. I still listen to Stern all the time. I was always a huge fan of the show. I'll probably do Stern again sometime. I just thought that whole situation was really...
I'm with Joe. That's fucked up. And he clearly had a motive. Like, he wanted to make him look bad. You could tell by the way that he was talking and things that he was saying.
Weak, and I didn't want to be a part of it. Having confirmed that the two were in fact fighting, Joe was asked about the feud in various radio appearances.
You let you feud with Howard Stern and Joe Rogan here. Howard has nothing but good things to say, and he was always wondering why you don't do his show anymore.
At which point he'd elaborate further.
Howard said, Joe hates women. And I listened to that and I was like, that's not true. Like, and I was like, what do I do? Do I go on and defend myself then? And then you get into that weird cycle of, accusing and defending, and I don't like negativity. I don't like conflict, There's a whole gotcha mentality over there.
No, that's very true. However, Joe discussing their feud only added fuel to the fire, as Howard then took to his own show to offer his side of the argument.
Speaking of feuds, Joe hasn't appeared on our show, Joe the comedian. So I told you Joe had some problem with me, so he discussed it with Craig Fitzsimmons.
You won't discuss it with us?
No, and I remember the exact incident and everything, and I knew this is what it was.
Vegas?
Yeah, this is Joe's. Yeah, this is what Joe said.
He said something about me on the air that I didn't like. He said I hate women, and I was like, come on, man, really? First of all, I'm gonna have to defend that. So then, whenever you're defending something like that, it always automatically looks like you're being defensive. Yeah. I don't even want to be involved. And I said, I'll just be a fan again.
And Joe's right. It's better he doesn't come on because he's building this thing up. I understand what he's saying, because if you start dealing with it on the air, then it becomes even bigger.
To me, let it go. Come back in and let's have fun again.
Yeah.
I like it better this way.
See, let it go when Howard is being an ass, and let it go when he's trying to tarnish his reputation. That's not something you just let go and laugh off.
You know what I mean?
It was clear that Joe and Howard weren't exactly best buddies, although to make matters worse, all of this went down 6 months before Joe had even started his podcast, which only damaged their relationship further. In March 2015, Howard made the claim that podcasts are for losers, prompting Joe's friend Ari Shaffir to bring up the topic on episode 623.
You're upset with Howard Stern because he said that shit about podcasting.
That's the new thing I'm upset with Howard Stern over. It just shows how much he's lost touch. That's not the way you become a radio DJ. Stern, no one wants to become a radio DJ who's doing podcasts. That's not our end goal. To anyone who listens to a podcast and listens to Howard Stern, just so you know, Howard Stern called you a loser for listening to podcasts as well.
This gave Howard Stern the chance to respond.
I got taped from Joe Rogan's podcast. He had a comedian on there who was bashing me the other night. He's a 41-year-old comedian I've never heard of, nor has anyone else. Dicking around with some podcast, and he's heard that I said that podcasts are no good. And if you sit in your room and do a podcast, you're pretending to be a broadcaster. Take the podcast and throw it out the window. You're 41 and you're on Joe's podcast, and no one knows who you are, and no one's going to hear you. This guy is like a street performer giving advice to Paul McCartney. Howard's old. He doesn't understand podcasting. No, I understand it perfectly. He goes, and by the way, everyone who has a podcast, Howard Stern's calling you a loser. Yeah, I stand by that. It's exactly what I'm doing.
However, despite Ari getting absolutely destroyed, it was obvious that Joe was trying to avoid drama.
Stern has really good interviews. They're really good.
Still, new ones?
Very good. He might have some ideas that I don't agree with, like that podcasters are losers, but that guy's the #1 radio guy of all time.
Which was in turn appreciated by Howard.
Joe is nice. He was like, saying, hey, Howard's a great broadcaster. Why don't you listen to what he's saying? Joe was like, are you for real?
In a 2019 article titled Howard Stern Says He Has Changed How Much, Stern was asked, do you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast? To which he'd respond by stating, I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I've never watched the entire podcast, but there's tons of clips of him, and he does a really good job, showing that perhaps they'd resurrected their friendship. Although the very next question was, is there an issue between you guys? To which Howard stated, yeah, there is. I was a fan of Joe's comedy. I was a big proponent of his before he was a host on TV, before he got into MMA fighting or whatever. Joe was a guest one time and I said something to him off air, which I won't go into, but he took offense. I haven't heard or seen him since. I think he made the decision that I was toxic for him, but I hold no grudge, showing that there might have been another private incident between them, as was also suggested by this clip.
I said something to him in private, and he was insulted by what I said. I don't even know if he has dislike or something from me. I don't know. But no, I won't be having him on, but that's not my idea. That's his.
Despite this, the interviewer then asked Howard, has he invited you on his show, to which he'd state, he hasn't, I'm not opposed to it. I've asked him to come on my show, but he doesn't want to, and I respect that it's not meant to be, which only became more ingrained in the very next year of 2020. Joe began the year by once again praising Howard Stern.
Whatever anybody wants to say about Howard Stern, he opened the door for podcasts, for sure. All these outrageous people doing podcasts, he made the roadmap.
However, as the pandemic made everything about politics, it became apparent that Howard and Joe held completely different opinions. While Howard Stern was vigorously
Joe's living his best rich life, and he like, yeah, you know, he cool. He started this shit for us. All right, let's move on. And Howard is bitter and still, you know, taking little digs and making little slick comments and telling their business. Joe ain't even doing that.
Vaccine, Joe made it clear that he'd rather use alternate medicine, leading Howard to resuscitate their very public feud.
Like I heard Joe Rogan was saying, he says, what do you bust my balls?
I took COVID, yeah.
He goes, I took horse
dewormer, yeah.
and a doctor gave it to me. Well, a doctor would also give you a vaccine. So why take horse dewormer?
Joe provided no response to Howard's comments and instead continued to host the podcast as he'd done so previously. Showing no interest in changing his stance, Joe was then pressured by the public to alter his behavior or explain his actions, eventually leading to this video.
I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong.
Although it seemed Howard Stern wasn't satisfied with Joe Rogan's response. The whole thing with Joe Rogan is so silly to me, Stern told listeners on Tuesday. Even the apology, he just should have said, you know what, listen, I'm a comedian and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Why are you continuing to talk about this man? It's giving obsessed. Now you are the fan. Because he's not even speaking on you, bum.
Background whatsoever to be telling people what to do with their health. Stern continued.
Did he tell people to do
issue an apology saying, I'm wrong and go and get the vaccine before you die. Although Joe maintained his refusal to argue and instead continued to praise what Howard had done for radio.
People to this day, they make fun of Howard Stern because of who he is now and the way he behaves now. That guy's the man. When he was the king of all media, and now he's woke. It's crazy.
Roughly 2 months later, Joe was once again asked the following.
What do you think of what Howard's become recently?
Well,
he's the only person I know who's gone, other than Penn maybe, who's gone from being red-pilled to blue-pilled.
Yeah.
Although the conversation went elsewhere before Joe would give an answer, prolonging the feud until the two media legends clash again in the future.
Joe is the epitome of unbothered, okay? He just kept going on about his rich business and, you know, paid Howard dust, as he should. Because what? It was giving hater after a while. Why did you continue to speak on this man and make these little slick comments when he clearly wasn't even worried about you? Like, the fuck? You know, so yeah, if I was Joe, I wouldn't fuck with Howard either, you know? And it sucks because he was a big fan of his work and he continues to praise him. That's the crazy part. That's why I'm like, he's the epitome of unbothered. Not only is he not feeding into the feud and the bullshit, but he's still speaking highly of him and everything that he's done, you know, for the broadcasting world. Wow. Y'all let me know what y'all think though. Let me know what other videos you want to watch and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.